We live in a world where peace of mind seems like a luxury, where stress is the norm and the noise of modern life does not leave us a single moment of calm, where negative thoughts, anxiety, and worries drag us into a state of constant restlessness. And yet the Stoics taught us that peace is not something that is found outside, but inside. It is not something that is sought, but something that is built with every decision we make, with everything we stop doing. The Stoics lived in difficult times of wars, slavery, and chaos, but still they managed to find tranquility in the midst of disaster, as they did because they understood that peace is not the absence of problems, but the absence of internal disturbance, and the key to achieving it is not in accumulating more things, but in letting go of everything that which drags us to suffering. So in this video I am going to share with you 15 things that you should stop doing if you really want to live in peace, and it will not be a superficial list of generic tips. Each of these keys is based on the Stoic philosophy and the wisdom of the great thinkers of history. I will also give you quotes from philosophers such as Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, so that you can understand with greater depth the power of these teachings, because true peace is not a destination but a path, and if you decide to follow it, if you decide to apply these teachings, you will discover that the tranquility and serenity that you seek so much have always been within you. You just needed to let go of what did not allow you to see it. One, to stop trying to control everything. We live in an illusion of control. We believe that if we care enough, if we analyze each detail, if we prevent every possible problem, then we can avoid suffering. We can control the results. We can make everything go as we want. But let me tell you something. That is one of the greatest traps of the human mind. The Stoics were very clear about something fundamental. There are things that depend on you and things that do not depend on you. Epictetus explained it masterfully. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of a principle. Some things are under our control and some are not. Epictetus, and this idea is one of the most powerful you can adopt in your life if you really want to live in peace, because most of the suffering we experience comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. Think about it for a moment. You can't control how people treat you, you can't control what others think of you, you can't control traffic, weather, or you can't control if someone loves you or rejects you. You can't control the future. But despite knowing this, many times we wear ourselves out mentally trying to manipulate, force the results to be exactly as we want, and in the process we only manage to exhaust ourselves, get frustrated, and filled with anxiety. True peace comes when you accept what is out of your control and focus only what you can control. Think about this. If you have an important exam, you can't control what questions the teacher will ask, but you can control how much you study. If you have a date with someone, you can't control whether they like you or not, but you can control your attitude and your confidence. If you start a business, you can't control the market or the economy, but you can control your effort and your preparation. And here is the key. When you stop obsessing over what you can't control, you experience a brutal liberation. It's as if a weight is lifted off your shoulders, because now, instead of living in fear of the future or with anxiety about things that are out of your hands, you decide to focus only on what you can really do. The Stoics practiced a concept called amor fati, which means to love destiny. It is the idea of accepting what life brings without resistance, without complaining, without fighting against reality. It's not about surrendering, but about understanding that there are things that simply are as they are, and your only power is in how you decide to respond to them. Marcus Aurelius made it clear when he wrote, "Welcome him without fear of whatever comes." Don't ask for things to happen as you wish, rather you want them to happen as they happen, and your life will be fine. Marcus Aurelius, when you really apply this, you stop living defensively. You stop suffering for things that are out of your reach. You learn to flow with life instead of resisting. And there, in that conscious surrender, you find peace. So ask yourself this question: what am I trying to control that doesn't depend on me? And when you have the answer, let it go, because that's the first step to living in peace. 2. Stop taking everything from yourself personally. If you want to live in peace, there is something that you must engrave in your mind, of course. Most of the things that people say or do to you have nothing to do with you, but here is the problem. We spend our lives taking everything as a personal attack. If someone ignores us, we think it is because they hate us. If someone is in a bad mood, we think it is because we did something wrong. If they criticize us, we assume that we are a disaster, but the truth is much simpler. People act according to their own internal reality, not yours. Epictetus made it clear with this powerful phrase: remember that you are not affected by what others say or do, but how you decide to interpret it. Here is the key. Pain does not come from what happens, but from the story we tell ourselves about what happens. Look at this example. Imagine that you send a message to someone and they don't respond to you all day. Your mind immediately starts to invent scenarios. Surely he is upset with me. Maybe I said something he didn't like anymore. He is not interested in me. How bad. But you know what it can be, that simply that person is busy, has lost his cell phone, or has personal problems that have nothing to do with you. Your peace is destroyed when you take everything on a personal level, and this applies in all aspects of life. If a stranger insults you on social networks, it is not your problem. It is their frustration, their insecurity. If a friend cancels plans at the last minute, it does not mean that they do not care. Maybe they have a bad day. If your boss does not congratulate you on your work, it does not mean that you are a failure. Perhaps they just have other worries in their head. Stoicism teaches us that what others do, it doesn't define us. It's not about you. It's about them, their experiences, their emotional state, their traumas. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone talks badly about you, don't bother you. Ask yourself, rather, I've done something that justifies that opinion. If it doesn't go your way, in peace. And it's exactly like that. If you know who you are and act with integrity, you don't need external validation. When you stop taking yourself all personal, you are freed. You are no longer dependent on approval of others. You no longer lose your cool because of negative comments. You no longer carry emotions that do not even correspond to you. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I been stressed or felt bad about something that really had nothing to do with me? If the answer is many times, then it is time to let go of that burden. You cannot control how others treat you, but you can control how you react. And when you choose not to take things personally, you give yourself the greatest gift of all, peace of mind. Third, stop expecting others to cheat like you want. One of the biggest obstacles to peace of mind is to expect others to act as we think they should. We get frustrated because someone doesn't treat us with the same kindness we treat them with. We get angry because someone doesn't value us the way we think they should. We get disappointed because we expect people to have our same principles, our same values, the same way of seeing life. But here's the hard truth. People are not as you want them to be. They are as they are. And if you don't learn to accept that, you will spend your life suffering from unrealistic expectations. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius explained it masterfully. When you wake up in the morning, say to yourself, today I will meet nosy people, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, envious, and selfish, but it won't disturb me because I understand that this is human nature. This is a teaching that can change your life. If you expect people to be perfect, to never make mistakes, to always understand you, to always respect you, you are going to be disappointed over and over again. Look at this example. Imagine that you are someone who always keeps your word. If you say you will do something, you do it, but one day a friend promises you something and then you don't keep it. You get frustrated. You think, why aren't people like me? If I deliver, why can't others do it? It's not fair. This bothers me. But here's the problem. You're waiting for that person to be like you, and when they're not, you get angry. But the reality is that each person has their own way of being, their own flaws, their own way of seeing life. That others are as you want it to be is a recipe for suffering. When you understand this, you stop fighting against reality. You accept people as they are, with their virtues and defects, without trying to change them. And that does not mean that you tolerate mistreatment or that you settle for harmful relationships. It means that you stop living with expectations. And real Epictetus said it clearly: when you times your child, remember that it is deadly. When you shake a friend's hand, remember that he can betray you. Do not do it with sadness, but with understanding. Do not expect others to be something they are not. This does not mean that you should be cold or distrustful. It means that you should accept life as it is without false illusions. When you stop expecting others to act as you want you to, stop feeling disappointed. You stop taking everything as a personal offense. You stop wearing yourself out emotionally trying to change others. Instead, you learn to surround yourself with like-minded people and accept others as they are without trying to mold them to your liking. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I suffered because someone didn't act as I expected? If the answer is many times, then you know what you have to do. Accept, let go, and move on. Peace comes when you stop imposing your expectations on the world and start living with acceptance and wisdom. Fourth, stop comparing yourself with others. If you really want to live in peace, you have to stop measuring your life with the rule of others. Comparison is enemy number one of tranquility. We live in an era where comparison is constant. You swipe on social networks and people traveling the world, having perfect lives, achieving impressive things, and without realizing it, you begin to feel that what you have is not enough, that you are not enough. But here is the trap: you are only watching a part of the story. Epictetus said it clearly: The more you value what others have, the more you despise what you have. You have you, and that's what happens to us. Instead of being grateful for what we have, we focus on what we are missing. But let me tell you something powerful. You are on your own path, not anyone else's. Look at this example. Imagine that you are climbing a mountain and suddenly you see someone who is already very far ahead. You get frustrated, or you keep climbing at your own pace, because what you don't see is that person may have started earlier, may have taken another path. There may be help. Everyone is in their own stage of life, and comparing yourself with others only takes away your peace. The Stoics teach us that the only valid comparison is with yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't waste time arguing about what makes a good man. Be one." That is, instead of focusing on what others have, focus in improving your own life, in being better than you were yesterday, in making your own path with dignity and purpose. Because when you live comparing yourself to others, you will never be satisfied. You will always feel that you are missing something. You will live with anxiety, envy, and frustration. But when you decide to stop comparing yourself and focus your energy on being the best version of yourself, then you find something much more valuable: inner peace. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I felt that I am not enough just because I compared myself to someone else? If the answer is many times, then it's time to let go of that burden. Your life is yours, your path is unique. Stop comparing yourself and start focusing on your own evolution. 5. Stop clinging to the past. If you really want to find peace in your life, there is something you must understand once and for all: the past no longer exists. Yes, it sounds obvious, but how many times do you keep stuck in what has already happened? How many times do you keep repeating in your head what you did wrong, what they did to you, what you could have changed? Let me tell you something. There is nothing more exhausting than fighting with something that you can no longer change. The Stoics knew this very well. Epictetus said it clearly: do not bother with what has happened, because don't worry about it anymore. Rather, what's in your power. The past, it's like a book you've already read. You can remember the lessons, but you can't rewrite it. Here's the problem. Many people get caught in one of these two traps of the past: regret and guilt. If I'd done this, my life would be different. I shouldn't have made that mistake. I wish I could go back and change it. But here's the reality: regret doesn't change anything. No matter how much you think about what you did wrong, you can't go back. The only thing you can do is learn from it and make sure you don't repeat it. The resentment, I can't believe he treated me like this. I'll never forgive what they did to me. They hurt me, and I'll never forget it. But think about this. Holding on to it is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. You don't hurt them, to them you hurt yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you suffer from something external, it's not that hurts you, but your interpretation of the fact. You can free yourself from it at any time. If you keep looking back, you'll never be able to move forward. It's like trying to drive a car just looking in the rearview mirror. You're going to crash. So here's the Stoic key: learn from the past, but don't live in it. Forgive yourself for what that you did wrong and move on. Free yourself from resentment, because your peace is worth more than your pride. Ask yourself, what part of my past I keep carrying that I should already let go of? And when you have the answer, let it go. Only when you let go of the past can you really embrace the present, and in the present is where true peace is found. 6. Stop worrying about the future. If the past no longer exists, the future has not yet arrived, and yet many people live trapped in a constant anxiety about what could happen. We think, and if I fail, and if I get sick, and if everything goes wrong, and if I never get what I want. We get anxious about things that haven't even happened. We worry about scenarios that only exist in our mind. But let me ask you something. How many times have you suffered more in your head than in reality? Marco Aurelio explained it with brutal clarity: don't suffer imagining the future will come when it should come, and with it the strength to face it. And most of the time anxiety is simply fear of the unknown. We want guarantees, we want absolute certainty, we want to know that everyone is fine, but life doesn't work like that. Uncertainty is part of the game. Here is the key: instead of worrying about the future, take care of the present. Look at this example. Imagine that you have an important exam in a week. You can do two things: worry and torture yourself mentally, imagining that you are going to fail it. Focus on studying and give your best in the present moment. Which of the two options brings you closer to a good result? The second, without a doubt. The Stoics teach us that the future is not in our hands. The only thing we can control is how we act today. Epictetus said, worry about the what can you do now. Tomorrow doesn't exist yet, and maybe it will never come. If you live constantly worried about what could happen, you will never enjoy the present. You will never find peace. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I stopped enjoying the present for fear of the future? If the answer is many times, then you know what you have to do. Stop anticipating problems. And start living in the now, because peace is not there in what is to come. Peace is here and now. 7. Stop seeking the approval of others. If there is something that robs you of peace, it is to live trying to please everyone, to worry about what they think of you. It is an invisible prison in which many people live without realizing it. Look, it is completely natural to want to be accepted. We are social beings, and the recognition of others can feel like a validation of our value, but here's the problem: when you turn external approval into a necessity, you lose your Epictetus explained it with a brutal truth. If you want to be free, stop worrying about what others say about you. And it is that many people live trapped in the fear of being judged. They don't say what they really think for fear of being criticized. They don't pursue their dreams because someone might mock. They don't dare to be themselves because they fear rejection. But here's the reality: no matter what you do, there will always be someone who criticizes you. If you're quiet, they'll say you're boring. If you talk a lot, they'll say you're annoying. If you work hard, they'll say you're obsessive. If you enjoy life, they'll say you're irresponsible. You're never going to please everyone. And if you try, the only thing you'll achieve is to lose yourself in the process. Look at this example. Imagine that you have a talent, something that you are really passionate about, but you are afraid to share. You worry about what others will say. Maybe they think you are not good enough. Maybe they laugh. Maybe they criticize you, and what happens then? You let fear paralyze you, and you never dare to be who you really want to be. Marco Aurelio made it clear: don't waste time thinking about the opinion of others. Live according to your own nature. Peace comes when you stop depending on external approval and start trusting yourself, because the only validation that really matters is yours. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I changed my behavior just to fit in or avoid criticism? If the answer is many times, then you know what you have to do. Stop begging for approval and start living according to your own essence. People will always have something to say, but their opinion does not define who you are. When you understand this, you free yourself, and that freedom is the key to true inner peace. 8. Stop resisting reality. If there is something that is going to make you suffer unnecessarily, is to fight against what is. We spend our lives fighting with reality. We complain because things didn't go the way we wanted. We get angry because people don't act as we expect. We get frustrated because life isn't fair. But here's the hardest truth: reality isn't going to change just because you don't like it. Marco Aurelio said it with brutal clarity. When you resist reality, it only causes suffering to yourself. Instead of complaining, adapt. And here's the key: it's not about resignation. It's about accepting what you don't. You can change and move intelligently. Look at this example. Imagine that you lose your job. You can do two things: spend months complaining and feeling victimized, accept the situation and focus on finding new opportunities. The first option leaves you trapped in suffering. The second option gives you back control, and that is the point of Stoicism. Accept what happens without losing focus on what you can do about it. Epictetus explained it in a perfect way. It's not what happens to you that's bothering you, but your opinion about what happens. And it's that many times suffering doesn't come from the facts themselves, but from how we interpret them. If something difficult happens to you and you think this is unfair, this shouldn't have happened, why are you just hurting yourself? But if instead you think, okay, this what happened, what can I do now? How can I learn from this? How do I move on? Then you take back your power, because when you stop fighting with reality, you find peace. So ask yourself this question: in what aspect of my life do I still resist accepting reality as it is? If the answer is clear for you, then you know what you have to do. Stop fighting against what you can't change and start acting on what is in your hands. Peace comes when you stop wasting energy on the inevitable and you start to flow with life. 9. Stop surrounding yourself with negative people. If you really want to live in peace, you have to be very careful with the people you allow in your life, because let me tell you something: the energy of the people you spend more time with is contagious. If you are surrounded by negative, pessimistic, toxic people who always complains about everything, who only sees problems and never solutions, sooner or later you are going to absorb that mentality. Epictetus said it with brutal clarity: avoid those who constantly complain, because their misery is contagious. Look at this example. Imagine that you have a glass of clean water. If you add a drop of poison every day, even if you don't notice it at first, over time the water becomes toxic. That the same thing happens with negativity in your life. If every conversation you have with someone is full of complaints, gossip, criticism, dramas, fear, or pessimism, that starts to affect the way you see the world. And here's the worst: negative people rarely realize that they always believe that they are just telling the truth, that this is life, that there is nothing to do. But the reality is that if you are not careful, it can also destroy you. Marcus Aurelius put it like this: surround yourself with those who lift you up and inspire you, and avoid those who only bring misery to your mind. Life already has enough challenges for you to carry the negativity of others on top of that. That does not mean that you should abandon all the people who have problems or who need support. It is about distinguishing between who is willing to improve and who just wants to drag you into their misery. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I ended up exhausted after talking to certain people? If the answer is very often, then it's time to do something about it. You can't find peace if you are surrounded by chaos. Start surrounding yourself with people who add to inspire you, who help you grow, because the energy that surrounds you determines the quality. 10. Stop looking for happiness externally. If you really want to live in peace, you need to understand something that the Stoics knew centuries ago. Happiness is not in external things, but here's the problem. Most people live with the idea that they will be happy when they have more money, when they get the perfect job, when they have the ideal partner, when they buy their dream house. We are always postponing peace, believing that there is something out there that will make us feel complete. But Marcus Aurelius made it clear: do not look for happiness in external things. Find it within yourself, because that is where it has always been. Consider the following scenario. You have been dreaming of a new automobile for years. After saving and making sacrifices, you ultimately purchased it. You felt fantastic for a time, but after a few months, you lose interest in the automobile. The trap of external happiness is that you will always need more. If you think that money will make you happy, it will never be enough. If you think that someone else's love will make you feel complete, you will always rely on that person. If you think that your value is in your accomplishments, you will always be afraid of failing. The Stoics teach us that true happiness comes from your thoughts, and Epictetus explained it this way: wealth, fame, and power are all things that can be lost, but inner peace depends only on you. This means that the key to peace is not in what you have, but rather in how you perceive it. When you stop searching for happiness in things outside of yourself, you will experience something amazing, and you will learn to appreciate what you have rather than dwelling on your shortcomings. You don't depend on external validation to feel well with yourself. You find gratitude in the present instead of living waiting for an ideal future. So ask yourself this question: what I have been putting my happiness into, which is actually something external and temporary? If the answer is that you can lose at any time, then you know what you have to do. Stop looking for happiness outside and start cultivating it inside yourself. Peace comes when you understand that you don't need more to be. Well, you just need to change your perspective. 11. Stop clinging to the wrong people. If you really want to live in peace, there is something you have to accept once and for all. Not all people are destined to stay in your life, and this is one of the biggest problems we face. We cling to relationships that already add us, to friendships that stop being friends, to people who have changed and who have already they don't fit in with who we are today. But out of fear of loneliness, habit, or simply attachment, we continue to insist on keeping them in our lives. Marco Aurelio made it clear: everything in life is transitory. Even people learn to let go without bitterness. But here is the problem: we have a hard time accepting that someone who meant a lot in the past is no longer the same person. It hurts us to realize that a relationship that used to make us happy, now it causes us suffering. We refuse to let go because we believe that doing so means that we fail. But the truth is different. Letting go is not losing. It is making space for what you really need. Look at this example. Imagine that you have a backpack and each person in your life represents an object inside it. If you keep accumulating things that no longer serve you, the backpack becomes too heavy and difficult to carry. It would not be smarter to let go of the unnecessary in order to move forward lighter. Epictetus explained it precisely: if someone causes you more pain than peace, I did not keep it in your life out of obligation. But here is the most important thing. Letting go does not mean hate. It does not mean that you have to hold grudges or feel resentment. It simply means accepting that some people have already fulfilled their role in your story, and it is time to move on. When you stop holding on to the wrong people, something incredible happens. You free yourself from toxic and harmful relationships. You stop wasting energy on those who don't value it. You open space to connect with people who really contribute to your life. So ask yourself this question: who am I still clinging to that I should actually let go of? If you have an answer, Clara, then you know what you have to do. Let go with gratitude, without rancor, and move forward with peace. The life is change, and holding on to what no longer adds up is denying yourself the opportunity to grow. 12. Stop avoiding silence and loneliness. If you really want to find peace in your life, there is something you must learn to do. Be with yourself without distractions. But here is the problem. Many people are afraid of silence. They feel uncomfortable if they are alone. If there is no noise, if they do not have something to distract them, then what they do, they fill every moment with noise, music, television, social networks, meaningless conversations, anything so as not to be left alone with their thoughts. They avoid introspection. They don't ask themselves how they really feel. They don't reflect on their life. They don't take the time to really get to know each other. They confuse loneliness with abandon. They believe that being alone is a bad thing, when in reality it is a gift. Marco Aurelio explained it brilliantly in any way. The secret to achieving inner calm is to first dare to listen to your own voice. Man can discover a more tranquil place than in his own soul. Consider the following scenario. You have a room full of items, but everything is so disorganized that you are unable to locate anything. That's what happens when you never give yourself a moment of silence. Your mind is so full of noise that you can hear what really matters. The Stoics knew that mental clarity and tranquility are only found in stillness. Epictetus said it like this: "No man is free if he cannot be alone with himself." When you learn to enjoy silence and solitude, incredible things happen. You stop depending on external distractions to feel good. You begin to understand what you really want in life. You find an inner peace that nothing and no one. So ask yourself this question: how much time does it really spend with myself without distractions, in silence? If the answer is almost never, then you know what you have to do. Dedicate moments of calm. Disconnect from the noise of the world and reconnect with yourself. Peace is not outside. It has always been inside you. You just need to learn to listen to it. 13. Stop reacting impulsively. If you really want to live in peace, you have to learn to control your reactions. Nothing destroys tranquility faster than acting without thinking. Look, we've all been in a situation where we've said or done something that we later regret, maybe in a moment of anger, frustration, fear, and then we realize that it was worth it. The Stoics knew this very well. For them, the real power is not in dominating others, but in dominating oneself through others. Anyone may get upset, but the intelligent man decides when and how to react, according to Epictetus himself. The issue is that most individuals don't respond. They react. When someone says something you don't like, you lose it. When something doesn't work out as planned, you have a crisis. Your whole day is ruined by a little irritation. But consider this: if you yell during a dispute, what good does it do to respond rashly? You only create more tension if you make hasty decisions. You're more likely to make mistakes if you let your emotions dictate your behavior. You become a slave to them. Marcus Aurelius explained it with this powerful phrase: the real power is to stay calm when everything around you falls apart. And that's what differentiates people who live in peace from those who live in constant conflict. It's not that they don't feel strong emotions, it's that they learn to control them before acting. Look at this example. Imagine that someone insults you. Your automatic reaction is return the insult, but what do you gain from that? Now imagine that instead you stop, breathe, and decide not to react. Who is in control at that moment? You. The key is to learn to pause before answering. The Stoics used a simple but powerful exercise, the 3-second method. Every time you feel like you're going to react impulsively, take a deep breath. Ask yourself this: really, my peace is worth it? If the answer is don't let go and move on. When you practice this, you start to do something amazing. You argue less, you feel less stressed, you make better decisions. So ask yourself this question: how many times have I ruined my peace by reacting without thinking? If the answer is many times, then you know what you have to do. Dominate your reactions and become the owner of your own calm. Because true strength is not in winning arguments, but in not letting go. 14. Let nothing and no one take your peace of mind. 14. Stop ignoring what you feel. If you truly want to live in peace, there is one thing you must understand once and for all: repressing your emotions does not make you strong. We live in a society that has taught us to keep our feelings to ourselves, pretending that we are fine even though we are falling apart on the inside. They tell us things like, don't cry, be strong, ignore what you feel, and move on. Time heals everything. However, the truth is that what you do not express builds up, and when emotions do not find a way to be expressed, they end up affecting each other in some way. Marcus Aurelius, despite being an emperor, recognized the importance of acknowledging his own emotions, writing, "It is not wise to ignore pain or fear. The key is to understand and manage it correctly, because ignoring what you feel will not make it disappear, it will only make it disappear. That at some point it explodes in the worst possible way. Look at this example. Imagine that you have a pressure cooker and you keep accumulating emotions without releasing them. Sooner or later it will explode. The same thing happens to you when you refuse to feel. The Stoics did not say that we should be cold or that we should not feel emotions. They taught that we should recognize them, understand them, and then decide what to do with them. Epictetus expressed it like this: do not ignore your anger, your sadness, or your fear. Observe them, understand their origin, and learn from them. Here is the key. If you feel sad, allow yourself to feel it. But don't get stuck in sadness. If you feel anger, analyze its origin instead of exploding. If you are afraid, instead of ignoring it, ask yourself what you can do to face it. When you start doing this, your peace no longer depends on running away from your emotions, but on understanding them. So make yourself this question: how many times have I ignored what I really feel instead of facing it? If the answer is many times, then you know what you have to do. Give space to your emotions without them taking control of your life, because peace does not come from pretending that nothing affects you. Peace comes from accepting what you feel and learning to manage it wisely. 15. Stop postponing your life if you really want to. Living in peace. There's something you need to understand about life. Don't wait. We spend too much time saying, when I have more money, I'll enjoy more. When I have the perfect job, I'll be happy. When I have time, I'll start doing what I really want. But the hard truth is that time will never be perfect. The ideal opportunity won't come by itself. Life is happening right now, and every time you put it off, you're missing out. Marcus Aurelius said it succinctly and forcefully: don't act like you're going to live 10,000 years. As long as possible, be good and do what you should do. Most people live as if they have endless time, as if life were endless. But it's not, and every day you spend putting off what you really want to do is a day you'll never do. You're going to recover. Look at this example. Imagine you have a ticket for an amazing trip, but every day you find an excuse not to go. It's not the time, I have other things to do, maybe later. And when you finally decide it's time to use it, you realize that the ticket has expired. That's what happens with life. Epictetus expressed it with brutal clarity. Don't say you'll do something tomorrow. The only thing you have is use the present well. Because when you postpone what really matters, you are filled with regrets. You live with the feeling that something is missing. You look back and realize that you wasted too much time. But when you decide to live in the present and act today, something incredible happens. You realize that happiness is not in the future, but in what you do now. You begin to make better use of each day without expecting a perfect moment that never comes. You feel peace because you know that you are not letting life pass by. So ask this question: what have I been postponing that I really want to do? If the answer is clear for you, then you know what you have to do. Stop waiting and start living, because peace is not in the future. Peace is in fully living the now. And with this we end the 15 things you must stop doing to live in peace. If you got this far, now you have in your hands the tools that the Stoics used to find tranquility in the midst of chaos. Final conclusion: peace is not something that happens to you. It is something that you build with every decision, with every habit, with everything you decide to let go. The Stoics understood that we cannot control the world, but we can control our mind. And when you learn to let go of what doesn't serve you, to focus on what really matters, and to live wisely, you discover that peace has always been there. You just had to allow yourself to find it. So tell me, which of these 15 things you need to let go of the most in your life right now?